Moving ahead, new job numbers out earlier today, and the Biden-Harris administration immediately rushing to rewrite history and paint the economy as positive and booming. But of course, men lie, women lie, numbers, they never lie. Unemployment rising to 4.3%, up 0.2% from last month, with an additional 352,000 people now unemployed. Now, these numbers mark the highest level of joblessness since October of 2021, reigniting fears of an impending recession. But according to the White House, nothing to fear here, kids. A statement released this morning said, quote, "Today's report shows employment is growing more gradually at a time when inflation has declined significantly. We're making progress growing the economy from the middle out and the bottom up." But Americans aren't living under a rock like the White House wants you to believe. We see the astronomical costs of groceries, housing costs up, gas costs up. We are living through the abysmal failure of Bidenomics, the worst we have seen since the Jimmy Carter economy, something Vice President Kamala Harris, now presumptive nominee Kamala Harris, wants to get as far away from as humanly possible. And so with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket this November, how badly will Kamalanomics hurt our economy? We're joined now by global business consultant Hillary Fordwich and E.J. Antoni, public finance economist at the Heritage Foundation. Hillary, I'll start with you. Every time we get a self-evident fact, there is the White House trying to assure us that our eyes are lying to us, our bank accounts are a mirage, and even though we feel as if we're living through shrinkflation as a result of Bidenomics, none of it is actually real.
Well, you're right. And actually, Joe, pleasure to be with you. And EJ, if I could just make a comment, you mentioned earlier that numbers don't lie. You were totally correct. But I will say this, oftentimes it's the numbers they don't show that actually further refute the real numbers. For example, last year in 2023, 11 out of 12 months, quietly, the jobs numbers were revised down. And there were 439,000 fewer jobs than the White House declared. That's according to MarketWatch. And this past May and June, there were 29,000 fewer jobs. So it's not just the numbers, it's those that they quietly revise later that matter.
Well, easy. I'm glad actually Hillary brings up that point, because it seems that all the time there is what is reported by the mainstream media, this what I can only describe as propaganda. And then after a while, quietly, they make these revisions. They say, oh, actually, maybe that was right, but it doesn't really matter. As you look at what the race is shaping up to become, Kamala Harris, who can't get away from the fact that she was that tie-breaking vote in the Senate as the vice president, voting for things like the actual infancy of the Reduction Act and all these things that we know were drivers for the inflation. What do you think is the most damning part of her record as vice president as it relates to the economy?
Well, Joe, not only was she, as you pointed out, the tie-breaking vote on at least two major pieces of legislation that spent trillions of dollars we didn't have, but also as the #2 person in this administration, she has been the primary cheerleader for all of those trillions of dollars in unfunded spending. So at the end of the day, just as the American people can't escape the inflation that the Biden-Harris administration has unleashed, I don't think that Harris herself can escape the blame for that inflation either.
You know, Hillary, I come back to you because presidencies, they're often judged by signature legislation. We don't know what Kamala Harris is really planning because she's been hiding in the basement she's sublet from Joe Biden for the last 13 days since she became their presumptive nominee. But if we go back to what she ran on the first time she ran for president, this is somebody who gave a full embrace of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all. In fact, she's one of the co-sponsors. This is somebody who has said that she believes that every single person that comes to this country, irrespective of their immigration status, should be receiving benefits from this country. The question that the media doesn't seem to want anyone to ask is, how does she plan on paying for all these Bernie Sanders policies that she has now assumed as her own?
Well, unlike Donald Trump, she's not a businesswoman. So being just in government, she just thinks that money comes out of the sky. And as Margaret Thatcher said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I also did want to mention that Intel just let go of 15,000 people, so the economy isn't going in a good direction. But back to Kamala, we do know actually what her policies will be, because we have her on record as saying things like she wants to cease all fracking. Well, that is basically going to destroy the state of Pennsylvania. That is going to make all energy costs rise, and actually I would say probably rocket. What does that mean? It will affect everything throughout the supply chain, for the food chain, throughout manufacturing, and it would really devastate this nation. Other things that we know that she definitely wants to do, we know that she wants to raise taxes. Well, as they say, the more you tax of anything, the less you get of it. That will definitely basically impede the economy. And she's all for regulations. If you just want to know what's going to happen under a Kamala presidency, all you have to do is to look at San Francisco, a beautiful, spectacular American city that is spectacular and beautiful no longer. Look there, and that's where you can see her policies actually in action.
Absolutely. News breaking today, Chevron picking up stakes from her home state of California as a result of the policies that she and her good friend Gavin Newsom helped bring there. Elon Musk and Tesla also pulling up stakes, HP just to name a few. So if you want to know what the future of America looks like under Kamala Harris, perhaps just take a gander at what California is quickly devolving into. Unfortunately, I have to leave it there. Hillary, EJ, God bless you both. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye, Joe.
All right. Well, too little,